Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sandra. I talk all things books, writing, and literature. So today I want to talk about something that's very hard to talk about, but I think it's necessary and important, and I don't really hear much discussion around this topic, at least not in my feed. So I thought, why not break the ice and talk about it, because it's something that I've recently done as well. And it's basically giving up on your book, or also known as shelving your book for the time being or permanently forever. However, I do want to make a little note that even if you shelve your book, that doesn't mean that you'll never get back to it. Many writers return back to a book that they've shelved years later, or after they've established their career where they could take more risk, or if they had enough time apart from that book to restart it, go a different direction, etc. So even if you are in the process of giving up on your book, or even giving up on your first book, it's not something that is wasted forever. And I know that we have a lot of conflicting emotions regarding giving up on a big project such as writing a book. So we'll get right into that, and then we'll get into why some people choose to shelve their books and what can we learn out of the practice of shelving books, and as well as the fact that shelving a book does not mean that's the end of that book, and nor does it mean it's the end of your career as a writer, your aspirations as a writer if you're a new writer. Now, let's talk about some emotions that you might be feeling, because these are definitely emotions that I'm feeling right now. I felt a lot of shame, a lot of guilt for shelving my recent book. And for those of you who have been watching my channel in the last few years, the book that I'm referring to is my French Riviera book. And the reason why I'm very much ashamed is because I kept telling everyone that this is the year I'm going to write it, this is the year I'm going to self-publish it. But as we're going to see in this video, I've changed my mind and I've shelved the book. So shame and guilt aside, another emotion that you might be feeling is that feeling of mourning, like you've dedicated so much time and energy into something just to say that, okay, you know what, we are going through a separation practically. So you can have like this mourning period, this grief period. Sometimes you're still hesitant as to, should I go, should I stay? It's almost like a breakup, it's almost like a severing. But again, let's not be too dramatic. Let's not let those feelings get too much in the way of our career, of our growth, and of moving forward, right? Because like I said, it can be temporary, and it actually can be a very beautiful and helpful thing to give up on a book or to shelve a book. Now, I think what personally helped me is the fact that I'm going into a project that I am much more prepared for, much more excited about, and that literally just speaks to my soul right now, and that doesn't require the amount of energy and research that I have been putting in the French Riviera book. So see, now we're gonna get into the different reasons as to why people tend to give up their book or shelve their book. For writers that are looking into first getting published, it could be because they spent years trying to query the same book with no result, nothing moving, and just pure stagnancy in their career as well, because they've really invested all their eggs in one book and just can't seem to get it out there. And that's an unfortunate thing that happens to most writers. So there is a decision that has to be made. Either you self-publish it, do it your own way, either you shelve it and get better at writing, or write another project and come back to it. Obviously, in this video, I'm talking about writers that want to have a writing career, a long and sustainable career, not the one-off book that most people are attached to. But it can be that you start that way, where you really think that your first book is the one that should get published and that you want to keep working on and pursuing. And that's another reason that can make you want to shelve a book. It's the fact that you've overworked it. Like, this is a thing. You can overwork a book dry. Like, you can spend so much time and energy rewriting, reformulating, redrafting this book just to be at your wit's end with it. Or in another vein, because you've been stuck on this book for so long, either stuck writing it, stuck editing it, or stuck querying it, it can be that you have literally no feelings towards this book anymore, and no good feelings or good excitement towards this book. I'm not saying that every book or every publishing process should be super exciting, easygoing, and smooth sailing. However, when it's really like it's drained the energy, the creativity, the excitement out of you, it might be time to take a step back, reevaluate, go to something else, or even just go and write something for fun, just for yourself, to reignite the love that you have, because at some point you did love and believe in that project. I don't really think that you would labor so many hours on something you don't believe in or something that you didn't love at some point in time, right? So even if you want to shelve it for life, at least you can retain those feelings or that moment in time where you were very proud, very happy, very excited for the story. It's just something that happens, right? You cannot just commit yourself forever to a thing, even if you've changed, right? Sometimes we change so much that we cannot associate anymore with something that used to mean the world to us. Now, I'm gonna give 2 more reasons that actually sound the same, more or less. The first one being that you are not ready, you are not prepared. So maybe your level of writing or your level of story comprehension, story building, world building is just not there yet for the project you want to write. Say you've always written literary fiction, or you've always written in one genre, and this new book or this book that you're writing right now is in a different genre that you haven't read much of, haven't researched much of, haven't, explored much of. It can be very hard to get there. It can be that you need more months, years, writing exercises, ideas, and help before, continuing that book. So it can be that you're not prepared yet, either as a new writer or as someone who's approaching something that's very unfamiliar, even in writing. And then similarly, it can be that the project is too big for you or too big for you right now. So going back to why I shelved my French Riviera book, although I love it, although I want to write it, although I see so much potential in it, first of all, it's a book set for the end of summer, and we are past the end of summer now, so there's no point for me to stress about it, rush it, and produce a work that I don't feel like writing right now because I'm not there yet with my research. For me, this project has become bigger than me because it's been 3 years that I've been collecting research, figuring out the plot, figuring out the characters, and expanding the world. Even if it's a literary book or a contemporary book, this book has expanded way beyond me being able to just sit down and write it and not think further. Because this book ended up being just a fun, flirty summer romance, and now it's completely different. It's completely altered. It has so many plot points, so many different themes, and the main character is not the only character that I'm exploring. And actually, this book is the first of 4 books now, so you can see how it just became bigger than me. And then now, if I want to really dedicate myself back to it, I'm gonna have to put much more time, more research, and more planning, not only of the first book, but of the following books, so that it all makes coherent and cohesive sense, right? Another thing that I discovered personally is that this book is too big for me on my own to be marketing and leading everything by myself. I know my strengths and weaknesses, and I know that as much as I wished I had self-published it already 3 years ago, okay, and that it's late, I know that I cannot self-publish this book. I know it now. I know it that the marketing that it needs, the people that it needs, has to extend further from me. I always wanted to take a hybrid path between self-publishing and traditionally publishing, and at some point I need to always look at the facts, look at my story, look at my own abilities, and say to myself, okay, this book I want to self-publish, and this book I want to traditionally publish. This book I can take on all the responsibilities. This book I can allow other people to take on some responsibilities too. So that's where I found myself with this French Riviera book, which is now going to be also a series, hopefully. So for me, I just knew that at some point I was just lying to myself that I couldn't keep on going. It wouldn't have been possible for me to write the whole book, edit it, market it all by myself. And we were already at the end of summer again because the research is just too much, and I have even more research to do for it. So moving forward, I've accepted that I'm shelving it for the next few months so that I can do part-time some research, that I can write other things, so I don't feel like I've taking too much time off of actual writing. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to write it. I'm going to focus more time and energy into it, and then eventually get it traditionally published. Now, it doesn't mean that every book that you shelve is a book that you're going to return to or a book that you're going to shelve forever. But the chances are, if this is your first book, you're more than likely going to shelve it, or you're more than likely going to shelve it for a few years before coming back to it. And there's a reason for this. It's the fact that every time you write and every time you start a new project, you solidify your voice, you get better, you do some more research, you do some more reading, you experience more of life, and it just logically makes sense that you just grow as a writer, as a person, and your interest changes, right? If you are trying to publish something that you wrote when you were 10, 15, and now you're in your 30s, chances are you're going to still have love for it. You still probably want to publish it, but in the course of time, you might have had other things that you were more in tune with or more excited for, and that's why you've ended up shelving a project, or you decided that, you know what, I'm going to shelve this for now and I want my debut or I want my next book to be something completely different. I'm going to give my first book as an example. My first book, I wrote it when I was 14 up until 18, and it was very much influences of my time, of my generation, of the shows that I was watching back then. So we're talking 12 years back, okay? And this book was my book baby. I wrote 110,000 words of it. It was just so messy but so fun, and it was a book that proved to me that I could actually finish a book. Essentially, it was my first book, and it was my first time understanding that I could write books. And I actually owe a lot to that book, because that book was the book that set me on a different path. From that book, I started to go into literature classes. Then I pursued literature in university and etc. So it was the spark to my writing career. It was the spark to everything. But I still know that that's not the book that I wanted to debut with. Maybe not at the time, but for sure, like, it didn't take me long to realize that this is not a book that I want to debut with. And on top of that, I had posted every chapter on Wattpad as I went along, as I worked, stopped working on it, worked, edited it, go back, you know? And it was a great experience for me. But like I said, it's still on Wattpad to this day. I still get comments on it to this day. And sometimes, if not most times, I cringe because wow, my writing has evolved. But I'm still grateful for that story. And I'm still grateful that people out there are still reading it and enjoying it and loving it. And I don't feel the need to publish it right now. I don't feel the need to go back to that book right now. You know what I mean? And since that point, I've written about 3, 4, 5, I would say, books that are almost at a 90% threshold of completion, that needs editing, and I'm still not always sure which one I want to get published. I know vaguely which books I want to traditionally publish, self-publish, and I know vaguely the order in which I want books to get published, but it also involves other people's decision as well. If you go traditionally, it also involves the market, it also involves what you want to work on right now. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much to it. But I do want to say one thing: no work, no book that you've ever written is a waste of time or a waste of energy. Everything you write is literally fundamental to you and your development as a writer. It literally exposes things about you, not only as a writer but as a person. It shows you the routines, it builds your habit, it builds your muscle, it brings you different emotions. Like, nothing is wasted in the world of writing. It's only wasted when you start telling yourself, this is wasted, why did I even try to write a book? You cannot see it that way. It's like the times where you read a book that you thought you were gonna love but you ended up not liking. It's just something that happens to everyone. So many times we get disappointed, so many times we change our minds, and that's okay. It's part of being not only a writer but a human being. So if you're feeling down right now about shelving a book and you're not too sure if you made the right decision, I just want to remind you of 4 things. First thing is that sometimes you need that distance, okay? Can be 1 year, few months, 10 years, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you need that distance, you need new perspective, you need a break, you need to be far away from a certain project because you've been too involved that you cannot see anything anymore. You cannot fix anything of it anymore, and you just need that time to get away from it. Second thing is, sometimes the book that you need to shelve is the one that is hindering your growth, is hindering your success or your ability to develop as a writer and your ability to get published. So sometimes you just need to take the loss and realize that it's not a loss, it's not a forever thing. Sometimes it's just something that just happens. The third thing I want to say is that every writer, if not most writers, have shelved at least one book in their career, if not multiple books. Me included, other people included, your favorite authors included. Just do the research and you will see how many books have been shelved, and it's a lot. And the last thing that I want to say is that we as creatives, we as authors, as writers, we tend to tie too much of our identity, of our self-worth with our creation or with our works. It's hard to separate. I understand that. I am a victim of that as well. But sometimes you need to realize that a failed book, a shelved book, or a book that you give up on does not reflect who you are as a person, does not reflect your abilities. It just is a lesson. It just is something that happens to all of us. You cannot learn if you keep trying the same thing over and over again with no new results. You cannot learn if you don't give yourself grace. You cannot learn and move on if you don't accept what is. For sure, everything that we create, everything that we invest our time and energy into are a part of us and might always be a part of us, but that does not mean that it's all of you, okay? It also doesn't mean that if you shelved a book once or if you've shelved multiple books at multiple times that you are a failure, that you're not a good writer, or that you're never going to advance in your career. And again, shelving a book is not the end of that book, is not the end of your career. And just please remember, I know I've said this many times in this video, but shelving a book does not mean that you're a bad writer, does not mean that it's the end of your career, does not mean that you'll never have another great book idea again, does not mean that you failed, does not mean any of that. It just means that you need time off, you need to do something different, you need to, fall back in love with writing and just move on in your career. I hope you found this video helpful. If you've ever shelved a book before, or if you've ever given up on a book or multiple books before, let me know down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And like I said, writing is a journey. It's always been a journey, and you're supposed to enjoy your journey to writing, even with the ups and downs, even with the uncertainty, even when you give up, even when you start something new. You're supposed to have fun, even if you take it as a career, even if you're being strategic. You're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to go through all the emotions as well. So you're gonna feel sometimes shame, guilt, grief, sadness, discouragement. Discouragement is a good one. I love feeling discouraged because it shows me that I really care about something. But yeah, let me know what you think. Feel free to share your thoughts and let me know what kind of writing videos you would like to see next. For now, I'm gonna go and write my new book because I'm very excited and I'm very happy, and I'll see you on the next writing or bookish video. Bye!